The report was released on the 31st of July 2018 and it's the OAIC's second report. It captures notifications that have been made to the Commissioner which occurred between 1 April and 30 June this year. So far there have been a total of 242 notifications made during that period, and we're currently tracking around 500 from the date of introduction in February. We are starting to see some trends appearing, although it's probably still early to say. Some of the more interesting findings from the second report have identified that 59% of the breaches occurring have been due to malicious or criminal attack, 36% due to human error, and the remaining 5% due to system faults. Those in the health sector top the list in terms of the number of notified breaches, closely followed by those in the finance sector, and then followed up number 3, those in professional services. We're seeing a greater level of awareness with most organisations now at least aware of the compliance requirements and the notification obligations that have come into place. That said, there are a number of organisations that still are unaware of their obligations and haven't gone that next step to review their privacy policies and procedures. They don't have incident plans in place, so there's still a little bit of work to do there. What we've also seen with affected organisations is that a number of organisations still see notification as very much a ticker box exercise. The OAIC has been very helpful in terms of providing an online resource for organisations to notify using their web-based portal, which is helpful. What we're seeing though is that organisations are starting to come up on the radar for the office, because it opens up a broader discussion about their broader compliance with the Privacy Act. Obviously there are other obligations under the Privacy Act around security of information, particularly under APP 11. So we're talking to clients and suggesting that they take the notification process seriously, and that they also think about their broader compliance under the Privacy Act. First and foremost, I would say be organised. Understand your compliance obligations and have in place an incident response plan. The concept of serious harm is a critical concept in this scheme, and those organisations who quickly determine whether serious harm is occurring to an affected individual will be able to make the decision whether they're required to notify or not. So having a good awareness and understanding of what constitutes serious harm is important. Being organised and having a response plan in place which triggers at the right moment will see you through what is a very stressful process. It will also reduce the risk of serious harm occurring to individuals, and will allow you to get on with your business following that event occurring. Those organisations which are required to comply with both the General Data Protection Regulation and the Australian Privacy Act have their work cut out for them. The GDPR came into place in the EU on May 25 this year. Earlier on this year we saw the introduction of the mandatory data breach scheme, which was introduced on February 22. The difference between the two regimes is that the GDPR sets some very tight timeframes around notification, which requires notification within 72 hours. There's no similar time frame under the Privacy Act in Australia. It does require organisations to notify promptly once they've determined that an eligible data breach has occurred. And we saw this juggling in practice with the recent PageUp data breach, which required PageUp, which is both an Australian and an EU-based organisation, to notify under the more strict GDPR 72-hour requirement. That effectively meant that they also had to notify under the Australian Privacy Act at the same time concurrently. And quick notification is not necessarily a better notification, particularly where there's a complex breach involved. And we would suggest that PageUp were really at a disadvantage in having to notify so quickly, although it's worth noting that they did a terrific job in the comms piece and in terms of resolving the event ultimately.